Imagine a Batman movie darker than The Dark Knight, stranger than a Tim Burton nightmare, and starring Nicolas Cage as the villain. Picture a scene where Batman is trapped in a hallucination, put on trial by the ghosts of every villain he ever defeated. The Joker, the Penguin, Two-Face, all back on screen together. This isn't fan fiction. This was a real movie that was written, cast, and minutes away from filming. But one disaster destroyed it all.
Hello everyone. Today, we are going to talk about the greatest what if in superhero history. We all know the story of Batman on film. We know Michael Keaton changed the world in 1989.
We know Christian Bale brought realism in 2005. And we definitely know Robert Pattinson is our current Dark Knight. But there is a missing link in this chain. A lost chapter that was supposed to bridge the gap between the colorful 90s and the gritty modern era. For years, people on the internet called it Batman Triumphant. But that name is wrong. The real title was Batman Unchained. And the story behind it is a tragedy of bad timing, massive egos, and a movie so expensive, it scared the studio to death. To understand why this movie never happened, we have to travel back to early 1997. Things were very different then. The Marvel Cinematic Universe didn't exist. Spider-Man was stuck in legal hell. And Batman was the king of the world. Warner Brothers, the studio behind Batman, was feeling invincible. They had just finished filming Batman and Robin, starring George Clooney and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, history remembers Batman and Robin as a disaster. We remember the neon lights, the bad ice puns, and of course, the infamous bat nipples on the suits. But here is the crazy part. Before the movie came out, the studio executives loved it. They saw the dailies, the raw footage from the set, and they thought they had a massive hit on their hands. They looked at the colorful sets and the toy-friendly vehicles and saw dollar signs. They were so confident that Batman and Robin would be a success that they didn't even wait for it to be released. In early 1997, months before Batman and Robin hit theaters, Warner Brothers called the director, Joel Schumacher, and said, "We want another one." They demanded a fifth Batman movie. They wanted it fast. They wanted it in theaters by 1999. Joel Schumacher, the director, was tired. He had just made 2 huge Batman movies, back to back. But he agreed to do one more, under one condition. He wanted to apologize. See, Schumacher knew that Batman and Robin was a living toy commercial. He knew it was silly. For his third and final film, he wanted to go back to the roots. He wanted to make something dark. He wanted to make a psychological horror movie. He hired a young writer named Mark Protasevich. You might know him as the guy who later wrote I Am Legend for Will Smith. But back then, he was just a guy with a dark imagination. Schumacher told him, "Forget the toys. Forget the kids. Make me a nightmare." So, what was the story of Batman Unchained? The script opens in a Gotham City that feels colder and meaner. Batman is no longer a team player. In the previous films, he had a big family, Robin and Batgirl, but in Unchained, Batman has pushed them away. He is angry, he is lonely, and he is separating himself from humanity. The central theme of the movie was fear. Not just being scared, but the psychology of fear. Enter our main villain, Dr. Jonathan Crane, the Scarecrow. In this version, Crane isn't just a guy in a mask. He is a brilliant but terrifying professor at Gotham University. He uses fear as a weapon, and the casting choice for this role is what makes this legend so famous. Joel Schumacher didn't want just any actor. He wanted someone unpredictable, someone intense. He wanted Nicolas Cage. At this time, in the late 90s, Nicolas Cage was a huge action star. He was making Face Off and Con Air. Schumacher visited Cage on the set of Face Off and offered him the role. Imagine the energy of Nicolas Cage, but directed at Batman. He would have played the Scarecrow not as a calm scientist, but as a manic, terrifying force of nature. But the Scarecrow wasn't alone. The script needed a second villain, someone physical to challenge Batman while Scarecrow attacked his mind. Protasevich decided to introduce a character who was incredibly popular in the cartoons, but had never been in a movie, Harley Quinn. However, this wasn't the Harley Quinn we know today. In modern movies, like the ones with Margot Robbie, Harley is the Joker's girlfriend. But in Batman Unchained, the writer made a shocking change. In this script, Harley Quinn was a toy maker. She was dark, funny, and sadistic. But she wasn't the Joker's girlfriend. She was the Joker's daughter. The twist was that she didn't know who her father was at first. When she discovers that her father was Jack Napier, the Joker from the 1989 movie, she snaps.
She blames Batman for his death. She wants revenge.
The studio was looking at huge names for this role. There were strong rumors about the singer Madonna, but the writer, Mark Protasiewicz, actually had lunch with Courtney Love to discuss the part. Courtney Love was the lead singer of the rock band Hole and was known for being gritty and chaotic, perfect for this darker version of Harley. So, the stage was set. Nicolas Cage as the Scarecrow, using fear gas. Courtney Love as Harley Quinn, seeking revenge for her father. And a lonely, angry Batman trapped in the middle. It sounds great, right? But the real reason this script is legendary is the ending. The climax of Batman Unchained is perhaps the most ambitious scene ever written for a superhero movie. In the third act, Batman is captured. Scarecrow hits him with a massive dose of his fear toxin. But this isn't just a little spray. Batman is completely submerged in the gas. His mind breaks. Batman begins to hallucinate. He finds himself in a twisted courtroom. He is on trial for his crimes against Gotham. But the jury and the judge aren't normal people. They are the demons of his past. This scene was designed to bring back everyone. The script called for cameos from every villain who had died or been defeated in the previous 4 movies. Danny DeVito would return as the Penguin. Michelle Pfeiffer would return as Catwoman. Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face. Jim Carrey as the Riddler. But the centerpiece of this nightmare was the man himself, the Joker. The plan was to pay Jack Nicholson whatever he wanted to come back for one scene. Remember, in the 1989 movie, the Joker falls from a cathedral and dies. In Batman Unchained, he returns as a ghost in Batman's mind to laugh at his failure. Protasiewicz, the writer, said that when he gave the script to Joel Schumacher, the director turned pale. He told the writer, "You have just written the most expensive scene in movie history." Think about the cost. In 1997, paying the salaries of Nicholson, Carey, Schwarzenegger, DeVito, and everyone else for one scene would have cost tens of millions of dollars. But it would have been glorious. It would have tied all the movies together, Tim Burton's gothic masterpieces and Schumacher's neon blockbusters, into one giant story about Bruce Wayne conquering his trauma. The movie ends with Bruce Wayne surviving the fear gas. He defeats his enemies, but he realizes he needs to conquer his own fear once and for all. The final scene of the script describes Bruce Wayne traveling to Bali. He finds a cave full of bats. Instead of running away, he stands in the middle of the swarm, letting the bats fly around him. He closes his eyes and accepts his identity. He is no longer afraid. If that ending sounds familiar, it's because 8 years later, Christopher Nolan used almost the exact same imagery in Batman Begins. It proves that Batman Unchained was ahead of its time. It was trying to do the psychological origin story before Nolan made it cool. So why didn't we see it? Why did Nicolas Cage never get to scream at Batman? Why did Jack Nicholson never return? The answer is simple. June 20th, 1997. That was the day Batman and Robin was released in theaters. Remember, Warner Brothers had already ordered Batman Unchained. The script was being written, the contracts were being drawn up, the train was leaving the station.
Hell freezes over.
Then, the audience saw Batman and Robin. The reaction was brutal. Fans hated it. Critics destroyed it. People laughed at the dialogue. They hated the bright colors. And they really, really hated the bat nipples. The box office numbers were okay for the first weekend. But then, they crashed. It dropped over 60% in its second week. In the movie business, that is a death sentence. It meant that people were telling their friends, do not go see this movie. Warner Brothers panicked. Suddenly, the dailies they loved so much looked terrible. The executives realized they had made a huge mistake. They looked at the script for Batman Unchained, a dark, psychological, expensive horror movie, and they got scared. They thought, people don't want Batman anymore. They didn't understand that people just didn't want silly Batman. They thought the character itself was broken. Joel Schumacher received a call. The studio told him to stop. No more Batman. The project was canceled immediately. Mark Protasevich's script was thrown into a drawer. Nicolas Cage was never officially hired. The idea of bringing back Jack Nicholson was laughed at as a waste of money. Warner Brothers was so traumatized by the failure of Batman and Robin that they didn't make another Batman movie for 8 years. The cancellation of Batman Unchained changed Hollywood forever. Because this movie died, Warner Brothers spent years trying to figure out what to do. They looked at dozens of other scripts. They considered a live-action Batman Beyond. They looked at a script called Batman Year One, written by Darren Aronofsky, which would have been even darker and weirder, where Bruce Wayne was homeless. They even considered a Batman vs. Superman movie in the early 2000s. But eventually, they hired a young director named Christopher Nolan. Nolan's Batman Begins, 2005, actually used many of the ideas from Batman Unchained. Both movies feature the Scarecrow as the villain. Both movies use a fear toxin that causes hallucinations. And as I mentioned, both movies end with Bruce Wayne standing in a swarm of bats to conquer his fear. It is fascinating to think that the terrible failure of Batman and Robin is the only reason we got The Dark Knight. If Batman and Robin had been just okay, Warner Brothers would have made Batman Unchained. If Batman Unchained had been made, the franchise might have continued in that weird 90s style. We might never have seen Heath Ledger's Joker. We might never have seen the realistic style that dominates superhero movies today. But we also missed out on something special. We missed seeing Nicolas Cage fully unleashed as a Batman villain. Cage eventually got to play a superhero in Ghost Rider, and he even voiced Spider-Man Noir in Into the Spider-Verse. But seeing him as the Scarecrow in the late 90s, that is a performance we can only dream of. When we look back at Batman Unchained, it's easy to laugh at the idea of Joel Schumacher making another movie. But we have to be fair. Schumacher was a great director. He made The Lost Boys and Falling Down. He knew how to be dark. He publicly apologized for Batman and Robin. He said he felt like he had murdered a baby. He wanted Unchained to be his redemption. He wanted to prove to the fans that he understood the character. The script for Unchained wasn't perfect. The idea of Harley Quinn being the Joker's daughter is a bit like a soap opera, and putting Batman on trial inside a hallucination is very risky. If the special effects were bad, it would have looked terrible. But it was bold. It was trying to do something different. In a world where so many superhero movies today feel the same jokes, the same CGI fights, Batman Unchained feels like a fascinating experiment. It was a bridge between the campy comics of the past and the psychological dramas of the future. Today, in 2025, Batman is in a good place. We have multiple versions of the character on screen. We have the Elseworld stories. We have the new DC universe coming up. But somewhere in a parallel universe, there is a DVD on a shelf. The cover shows George Clooney looking gritty and tired. Behind him stands Nicolas Cage with a burlap sack on his face, and the title reads, Batman Unchained. It remains the most fascinating movie never made. It is a reminder that in Hollywood, everything can change in a single weekend. One bad box office report can kill a franchise, and one good script can be lost forever. So the next time you watch Batman Begins or The Batman, spare a thought for Unchained. Think about the fear gas, the hallucinations, and the trial. Think about the movie that had to die so the Dark Knight could rise. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into the lost history of Gotham, make sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories Hollywood tried to hide. Until next time, keep the bat signal lit.